Hello, this is Mr. McMurray, and we are starting with the second part of the integumentary study guide. The quiz, which will come after this, will start with number 16 and go through number 32. Now, we may cover more or less than that on this particular video, but that's what the quiz tomorrow will cover. We'll call Son of Skin quiz, and it will be coming up. Anyhow, we got through number 16 and 17 already on the last video, so we're going to start with number 18. It talks about you have three kinds of glands. You have sebaceous, which are the oil glands. All right, you have sweat glands or eccrine glands, but you also have apocrine sweat glands. All right, so here's our sebaceous gland or oil gland. We said is attached to the hair follicle. That's why you have oily hair. And you have the sweat gland, which opens up to the skin. Okay, now the eccrine sweat glands, what we think of as your normal sweat glands. Okay, these are just the sweat glands that you have all over your body that sweat and put out mostly water with urea and some other things mixed in with it. Occasionally on the surface of your skin and help you cool down. Now, the apocrine sweat glands are only found in your armpit, okay, under there, and in the groin area. All right, and they produce, besides just sweat, they make a lot of proteins and other substances. And this basically, any sweat makes a moist environment, which helps bacteria and things like that grow. But in particular, and that's why, for example, sweaty feet, especially if you have socks, sweaty socks trap the moisture in there, and you get fungus, and also bacteria can grow down there, and that's where athlete's foot comes from. But these apocrine sweat glands, they also have proteins like food supply for the bacteria. And so usually your stinky sweat glands, if you want to say that, are your apocrine, the ones that are under your armpits and the groin area. Those are really about the only areas you need to wash off with soap, because they are going to be kind of smelly because of the bacteria that are there and producing gases. Now, your other sweat glands, like all over your skin and everything like that, those particular sweat glands are just producing moisture to the top, and you get in the shower, rinse it off, but you really don't need soap probably to get rid of those. All right, just a little personal grooming tip there. All right, so if we look at this, on your thing here, it talks about the sebaceous glands, which are, we said the oil glands. You have the eccrine, which are your regular sweat glands, and your apocrine, which are your sweat glands that make the more protein and stuff like that in your groin and armpit area. So, number one, oily mixture of lipids, cholesterol, and cell fragments would be a sebaceous gland. That's the oil type stuff, as well as cholesterol and some other stuff that comes up. In those, the least numerous perspiration gland, or perspiring, would be sweating, so that'd be C, because they're less common, whereas the eccrine are all over the place. Number three, its secretion contains protein. That would also be the eccrine, or C. Or apocrine sweat glands, or C. Number four, the ducts open to the external environment through a pore. This would be your eccrine sweat glands. The apocrine sweat glands are actually associated with hair. Once again, armpits where you have hair, and in the groin area where you have pubic hair. So they tend to be associated with hair. So if it has a duct that goes straight to the surface, that would have to be an eccrine or a regular sweat gland. All right, number five. Anywhere on the body except the palms of the hand and soles of the feet would be the sebaceous glands. Okay, don't want oily hands and feet, I guess, make it hard to hold on to things. Number six, its secretion contains bactericidal substances, it's sebaceous glands, as well as making oil. They also make things that help to kill bacteria, which is a good thing. Of course, what do we do then? We wash it off and get rid of it, because we don't want that, right? So I suspect we do a lot of damage to our bodies by washing off oil gland stuff. One, the stuff that kills bacteria. Also, the oil helps protect our skin and hydrate it. And when we wash it off with soap, guess what we have to do? We have to put conditioner or hand lotion or whatever back on it to replace the oils that we washed off. All right, number seven, more active at puberty. This would be A and C. Okay, when little kids sweat, they don't stink much because they don't have much of the apocrine sweat glands. And you tend to sweat more and more as you get older. All right, so as you get through puberty. So, I'm sorry, that should be A and C. Apocrine sweat glands, because that's why little kids don't sweat much. They just have the eccrine sweat glands. And then the sebaceous glands, or the oil glands, obviously get more active when you hit puberty. And just for the record, it's the androgens, which means it's the male sex hormones, which is like testosterone, which women have in a small amount, and guys, of course, obviously have. And so it's all the guy's fault, again, that you have oily skin or stinky, sweaty glands. All right. So A and C would be good for number seven. Number eight, is A, sebaceous glands. If the sebum or whatever gets clogged up in your arteries and it gets oxidized, it will become blackhead. That's A, sebaceous. 9 glands that empty their secretions into hair follicles then would be A and C. And number 10, thermal regulation would primarily be your eccrine sweat glands. All right, mostly they just produce liquids that evaporate and make you less hot, have to cool down. All right, number 19, why do adolescents have oilier skin? Once again, the male sex hormones, both in males and females, kick in during adolescence, and that's what triggers your oily skin and also the more stinky sweat glands in the armpits and the groin area. All right, so going along with that, also whiteheads, we said where sebaceous glands get blocked by the substance in them, which is called sebum, S-E-B-U-M, and that's just called a whitehead. Now, if the sebum begins to oxidize and dry and become black, then it's called a blackhead. Now, both of those are fairly harmless. If you were to pop them, not probably recommended, but still, if you pop them, it unclogs the gland and they go away. Okay. Acne, on the other hand, is when you actually have an infection of the sebaceous glands. Okay, and therefore we have a pimple. It gets usually it's more raised and it feels tender and painful. If you pop that, you may spread the bacteria, which means you may also spread acne to other parts of your skin. So that's definitely probably not a good idea to do that. Now, seborrhea, rhea, same thing we see from diarrhea, means flowing. Okay, instead of poop flowing, that's all liquidy. In this case, it's sebum. Okay, in other words, there's too much sebum coming out. And so technically it means fast-flowing sebum or oil, and it's also called cradle cap. You usually find this in young babies, and there's sebaceous glands, probably because when you were in the womb, in the uterus, you were coated with a waxy coating so you didn't get all pruny and stuff like that to protect you from being basically underwater for 9 months. And so it takes a little while for some of those glands to kick back, and they still are a little overactive a lot of times in infants. Sometimes they have like little pink lesions and they'll make like a yellow or brown crust. It looks really awful, but if you just wash it off with warm water, then the baby's basically all right. Okay? All right. What is sweat composed of? Well, mostly it's water, but it also has salt. Obviously, we know sweat is salty. It has vitamin C, traces amounts. It may have other metabolic waste like ammonia, urea, and uric acid, even though not usually enough to smell or anything. And has lactic acid. Lactic acid builds up in your muscles when they run out of oxygen and start doing anaerobic respiration. And so it's a waste product. And once again, something you can give off, and it doesn't smell real bad or anything, but there you go. So it does, besides just water and salt, it does also get rid of some other substances if you have excess in your body. All right, how does sweat help regulate your body temperature? Basically, as it evaporates, to evaporate, the liquid has to gain a energy, heat, and so it soaks up heat from your body, which allows it to evaporate, and so that cools you off, okay? And just for the record, you can produce up to about 7 liters. Okay, remember a 2-liter bottle is? You can produce up to 7 liters of sweat a day. Now, normally you wouldn't do that unless you were just doing some vigorous exercise. All right, if you were doing that, you can see how you would need to replace that water and be drinking lots and lots of water. For most of us, they always say 8 cups. That's not really a set amount, but generally, smaller amounts of water will be sufficient unless you're doing some heavy exercise sort of thing. All right. If you're in sticky weather, we say it's humid outside. The water vapor, the air is full of water vapor or have a high humidity. The water doesn't want to evaporate off your skin, and we say it's sticky. Why? Because your sweat won't evaporate, so you stay wet, and you can't cool off. So we say it's hot and sweaty, especially if you're sticky, especially if you're in like Houston where you have high humidity most of the time. All right, a hair color is also called melanocytes down at the base of the hair root down here, and so just like we said, melanocytes called skin color. You have slightly different colors. You have yellow and then kind of a rust and a brown and black. But various combinations of those hair colors give you, pigments give you the different hair colors, okay? And so that's where our hair color comes from. All right. Now the shape of the hair, in other words, if you were to cut this in two like that, then, and took out the cross section of the hair, the shape of the hair gives it a lot of the texture. If it's oval shaped, Let me get back over here, sorry. Yeah, there we go. Okay, if it's oval shaped, then you tend to have smooth, silky hair, straight, very fine sometimes. I tend to apparently have oval hair back when I had hair, but I don't much now. But when I did have hair, apparently it was pretty much oval. Okay, very straight. Okay, all right. Well, actually, I take that back. Yeah, perfectly round. If it's oval, it's more smooth and silky. If it's perfectly round, then it's more straight and coarse. Mine was straight, definitely straight, but it was very fine hair as opposed to coarse. So there we go. Okay, mine must have been perfectly round, but very skinny. All right, and then flat and ribbon-like. Okay, if it's kind of flat like a ribbon, then it is curly or kinky hair. Now, basically, that's kind of sets you up. Okay, you can roll it. You can put little curling iron, do whatever. But basically, if your hair is shaped one way, it's going to want to go straight. And if it's curly, it's just going to be curly. All right. And some people, the world made of two people, sometimes it seems like those who have straight hair that want it to be curly and those that have curly hair that want it to be straight. Sorry, you can do a certain amount to it. You can straighten it or you can curl it, but basically it wants to be what it is based on the shape of the actual hair shaft. All right, number 25, what causes goosebumps? Well, goosebumps is basically when that erector pili muscle, which is here, pulls on that. That pulls this up straight and fluffs your hair up, okay? And that causes a little puckering right here at the surface because it kind of messes where the skin there's. And that puckering look is the goosebump, all right? Now, basically, if you were a wild animal, this would increase the amount of air trapped up in your fur, which would help keep you warm and insulate your body, keep them warmer. It also makes them look bigger, okay? Now, not either one of those really help us a whole lot, but I will say, as someone who doesn't have hair on your head, trust me, you lose a lot of heat when you do not have hair up there. It does make a difference, okay? And that is not just fooling around. That's serious stuff, I can tell you that. All right, let me get back to there. Whoa, okay, to their fingernail. All right, to label and identify the following ones. Okay, first of all, we're not labeling this one right here. You don't have to worry about that one. It doesn't have a label. All right, but back here at the very back, underneath your fingernail, here's your skin coming up over your fingernail. Here's your little cuticle. All right, back at the back, this is the matrix. This is the layer below the skin that actually creates new fingernail. This is where the fingernail comes from. Now, when someone rips out a fingernail, if it just breaks up here and comes off, or as long as this area back here is still there, it will continue to make new fingernail. But if they were to rip out and it actually ripped out this layer back here, the nail matrix, then you actually would not be able to grow a fingernail back. All right. Now, the first part of the fingernail then is the nail root, okay, which is back underneath there. The proximal nail fold, all right, this is where your skin is coming down to your finger. And then you have the part here that sometimes you get the little tool and push back, I guess, when you get a pedicure and all that, is a cuticle. Okay, a little thin skin layer that sticks out over that. Okay, now the main part of the nail is the nail body. All right, this is attached until you get out here, and then you have out here the free edge of the nail. We'll talk about in a minute, which is what we clip off. The nail bed is this dermis underneath. All right, if you ripped your fingernail off, or if you cut it too far back here to where it touches that, it will be very painful because this is like dermis, and therefore it has nerve endings and blood and stuff like that. So it's very painful if you rip that off. The nail bed is kind of reddish, which gives you the color of your fingernails. Sometimes they use that to check your blood circulation. If it turns blue, then you probably don't have very good blood circulation going on there. All right, the free edge of the nail is out here. That's what we cut off. All right, and then, of course, you have the bone, or this is the distal phalange, okay, the very last phalange. We'll talk about bones later. And your finger bones are phalanges, and the ones on the end are called distal. All right, now on the actual fingernail from the top view like this, yours looks a little different than both of these probably, but okay. Anyhow, oh, I don't worry about the hypodermis over there, just leave that off. We won't do that. All right, now the free edge of the nail up here, the lighter colored part that we cut off. All right, then we have the nail body back here. We have the lateral, to the side, nail fold. This would also be the lateral nail fold over here. Proximal nail fold means at the back of it. And then you would have the lunule, which is the little moon shape there. And finally, the cuticle. All right, we're done.